Hello, and welcome to GatherVerse News Unscripted, your home for humanity-centered tech journalism. I'm Lisa Bernard. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, as we do every Wednesday, we will bring you our Pioneer Profile. This is where we take an in-depth look at someone who is a leader in Web3, but who is also considering the impact emerging technology has on humans and on society. Today, we introduce you to Evo Heyning. Evo is the CEO and executive producer of Realitycraft. She creates immersive experiences, always being mindful of the emphasis on community and human connection. Evo is also the vice president of the board of the XR Guild, which is advancing best practices and ethical engagement in Web3. Here is Evo Heyning. We are speaking for GatherVerse News with Evo Heyning. Evo is an artist, an author, and an interactive producer. Her work has evolved as new technologies have emerged. Evo, tell me about your work in the past and how it has taken you to where you are today.
I began working in creative technologies as a very young kid. I was a coder when I was 6. So I started making games very young. And then early in the 2000s, I jumped into what was virtual worlds. And so I was asked to participate in the Metaverse Roadmap in 2005. And I was a part of an organization that became many different organizations in Second Life back then. So I watched many of these technologies evolve, what became virtual worlds, then VR, AR, the intersection of live streaming and games, as well as things like digital twins and the mirror worlds, and how all of that converged to be what we call the metaverse today. I work with a number of communities, the Open Metaverse Interoperability community, which is fantastic. We work on open source code, specifically for artists being able to take their work across the metaverse in ways that they can control, that they can track. So, for example, if you've made a big Burning Man art installation and you've taken it to a great festival, how do you take it to other VR worlds, or how do you take it into a game? Those are the problems that we like to solve together in open source, in community together. So I work with these communities, and we go from problem all the way through tooling and then to standards as well, so that everyone can adopt those and work with them.
So communities are really important to you, and I think we should all care about how community evolves in the metaverse. Talk to me a little bit about the fundamental human connection and how that plays into the metaverse.
I found early on that the metaverse, or virtual worlds or virtual spaces, became a very easy place to meet people in their honesty and their authenticity and their vulnerability. So whether it's putting on an avatar and then going and having a dance party or meditating together, I have found that those synchronized experiences change the way we connect. We tend to be more bonded to those people. So I am still friends with people that I used to meditate and create with in 2005, 6, 7, because we synchronized. We got on the same page around the same types of initiatives, the causes we cared about, the nonprofits that meant something to us. And that's durable. It's something that, those are still my best friends almost 20 years later.
And how does that compare to physical human interactions?
Many of those people I have never met, and yet our friendships are just as durable as my physical connections. So we synchronize differently, right? We dance at a dance party in a virtual world, or we go in VR and play golf or play a game together. But it still synchronizes us, it still bonds us. So we did a play on this year at AWE called Metatraversal, about how we move across these worlds and about how our relationships carry with us our social graph, but not just our friendships. The way that we choose to interact is something that we carry through no matter what world we're in.
So people who might be hesitant or concerned about meeting people in the metaverse, meeting quote unquote strangers in the metaverse, what would you say to them?
I would say that 98% of people are awesome. And that's generally been my experience in almost 20 years of virtual work. Almost everyone is amazing, and every game world has griefers, and you just have to be prepared for that by engaging in good security, good privacy practices, understanding that your data can be shared, and making sure you understand how it is being shared, so that whether you're a parent working with a child, or if you're trying to do work together, you understand where those relationships are going to unfold. And if you're collaborating together, where does that agreement then meet real world work?
So do you have concerns about your work going forward? Should your communities be proactive to anticipate bad actors?
Always. I work on initiatives in government and in the public commons and in nonprofits with vulnerable populations. So absolutely, always. We never want people to be put at risk for their engagement in a virtual space, whether that's a civic engagement project or a game. So whether it's engaging in better practices for ethics and cybersecurity, that's what we do at XR Guild. And that level of professional engagement is vital so that we are all sharing best practices together.
Tell me a little bit more about XR Guild, because it truly was created to make sure that there are ethics in the metaverse, right? Tell me about the work there.
During the pandemic, some of my colleagues came together and then found me and said specifically that we needed to come together as professionals and set forth something together. There had been a gap in the knowledge between the generations of developers. And so we had seen Virtual Worlds 1.0, we had seen VR, and we had seen this massive wealth of data that could come from these spaces. But we hadn't necessarily had a real conversation about the ethical use of that data. So big companies had massive data like pools, and where does that data go? We didn't know. We still don't have that great information. Some governments, the EU, for example, has now set up data protections for the people. Here in the US, we don't have that yet. We don't have the same data protections for the people. So as an industry, we needed to come together and figure out, how do we believe that we should act in the best interest of everyone and create better tools for everyone so that we aren't being abusive of consent, for example.
You mentioned the EU. Tell me about some of your international work with international leaders and bringing them together in the metaverse, in virtual worlds.
All over the world, yeah. So I've been engaged in virtual engagement as a part of civic engagement for almost 20 years. That started with the State Department and then with the White House, working in places like Second Life, bringing together diplomacy conversations, climate action conversations, ways to have the dialogue without necessarily flying all over the world to have the conversation. So that work goes all the way back to 2007, 8, 9. And now we have 15 years of research showing that this saves millions of dollars. Certainly during the pandemic, work would not have happened if we didn't have virtual spaces to come together in and have those conversations. So today I go and represent, for example, at the World Government Summit. How do we build an open commons? How is it powered by open source technologies? How is it an open space for everyone to thrive? Because all three of those have to come together.
Absolutely. What do people not understand about your work that you wish they would understand?
Many people will set up a false dichotomy or a dualism between what is real and what is virtual. This is all real. These relationships are real. The places that people create are real to a group of people for a real reason. And so these ideas of AI being generative and separate from what is real is also a false dichotomy. These aren't real dualisms at the end of the day, because we are all informing each other's creative process. What we are creating might be interactive or digital, or it might be generative, but all of these things are informed by human creativity. They are an expansion of who we are as human beings. They're not leaving that aside. And it's certainly not replacing human contact. It is enhancing it and hopefully improving how we create together.
That again was Evo Heyning. We'd like to thank our editor, Alan Filippi, who edited that piece for us. He is with ADF Video Bay Area. And Alan, thank you so much for your work. We'd like to interview people who you are interested in. Please go to gatherverse.org/news and drop a comment and tell us about some of the people or stories you'd like us to pursue. I'll be back here tomorrow, and I hope you'll join me. I'll be interviewing Sid Desai. He's the CEO and co-founder of Novo Being. Novo Being is a VR tool for self-care and stress reduction. It's a VR app that offers immersive meditation and cognitive behavioral therapy, among other things. Novo Being is also conducting clinical trials in hospital settings with patients who are isolated for long periods of time, cancer patients who have to be kept away from germs. It's very lonely for sometimes their month-long stay alone in a hospital room, and they're exploring how immersive technology can help make that experience less stressful. I hope you'll join me here tomorrow for that at the same time, noon Pacific. Have a great day.